convene the meeting.
I don't know, are we?
Well, it's 4:01, so I'm going to start the meeting. We are taping. I'm going to convene the meeting, and I'll do a roll call. I don't know if everybody's here yet, but I can at least start a roll call, and people can say that they're coming late afterwards. Mayor Weed, please say something when I say here or something when I call your name out for purposes of the meeting. Mayor?
Something.
That's guess I deserve that. Let's see what other people say. Butch?
Present.
That's pretty good. Chief?
Hello.
Chief?
Here.
Hello. There's all right. Hello.
Just walked in.
David?
We're good.
Somewhere.
Hello. Carol Collins?
Here.
Amy McMahon?
Here.
Great. Herb Forgy? Steve? Jen?
Here.
Liz?
Here.
David Singer here. Gene Wall?
Here.
Okay, non-voting members. George Vandelinder. Marlo.
Here.
Fernando. Chief Hay. John Andrews. Eric Turok. Laura Phelps. Okay, that's a here?
She's a here.
Are you mute? Just
I
could
am
you just say
muted.
here?
Here. Aloha.
Thank you. Ed Jarvis.
Here.
Greg Diefendorf.
Here.
Peter McIver.
Present.
Neil Joyce. Not here yet. Dennis or who's here from that office?
Here. Adam Champagne.
Katrina
And Katrina.
Okay, hi.
Katrina Pacheco.
Okay. And who's there's another consultant here. Who's
Yeah,
that?
Roger from CMS.
All right, thanks, Roger.
And Neil's on now, I see.
Got Neil's on.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi. Okay. So as people come in, I will note their arrival if I can help it. All right, this meeting is being recorded by the Fire Station Building Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. On cue. Thank you, Jaden. All right, all of us, I assume, have received the minutes from the last meeting. May I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Thank you, Jean. A second? No second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any questions? Hearing none. I'm going to go through a roll call again. So all in favor? Mayor?
Yes, and Steve Draculich has joined us.
Hi, Steve. Butch?
Yes.
Chief?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Amy? Amy, approve the minutes?
Yeah.
Thank you. Herb Forgy, approve the minutes, period. Steve just arrived. Thank you. Steve, do you approve the minutes?
I approve the minutes, yes.
Thank you. Jen, approve the minutes?
Yes.
Liz, approve the minutes.
Yes.
Gene Wall, approve the minutes.
Yes.
David Singer, yes, approves the minutes. Okay. Thank you all for your patience up to now. All right, so temporary fire station report. David.
Okay, so for those of you who didn't attend the meetings and don't know, we'll talk about the apparatus space first, and then we have some updates on Vanguard and the living quarters in the business offices. But with respect to the apparatus space, and Neil could talk a little bit more detail if you like the detail. We did go through the two companies and we went through the technical qualification, but when the pricing packages were open, it came down to that we couldn't move forward with any of the contractors because of some issues with bonds and other issues. So we have to, the bottom line is we have to put it back out, an RFP back out on the street for pricing, and hopefully we can resolve what the issues are and work with the contractors. But if you want more information, I'm sure Neil will fill us in with the details on that.
Go ahead, Neil.
So there were, just from a very high level, there are what I would call informalities in the bid, which can be overlooked and corrected after the fact. And then there are statutory requirements for every public bid in Massachusetts, which cannot be overlooked. The city is compelled, if these are determined to be in violation, that the bid has to be rejected. And unfortunately, that was the case in each of the 3 proposals that we received. One contractor failed to provide a technical proposal for the city's evaluation. They only provided the price. A second vendor provided both a technical proposal and a price proposal. However, the forms were very incomplete and they failed to provide a bid security. And then the third person that submitted failed to provide a DCAM update statement. And none of the 3 bidders, or proposers, I should say, carried the requisite DCAM certification. So given the specific nature and the special nature of the work, I reached out to the AG's office. I spoke with Deb Anderson and asked her if the city would be able to waive the DCAM requirements because none of the 3 proposers provided them. And the response was absolutely not. It is a matter of statute and they must provide it. So unfortunately, as Dave said, we were compelled to reject the bids and are presently putting them back on the street. Contacted each of the 3 proposers and gone through the shortfalls of their proposals in detail with them, and have encouraged all 3 to participate in the re-advertisement and rebidding process.
So, is there any action that the committee needs to take?
No.
No.
Yes, Jean.
Did we open the prices? Were they in line? Respect?
Gene, they ranged from at or about our budget item to our budget plus 100,000 to our budget plus 400,000. So the numbers were sort of all over the place.
Do we have, remind me of our time frame when we go out to bid? What has been done towards that at this point, and how long do we have?
So I believe when Laura and I spoke earlier this week and came to this determination, we set in motion a new ad that would be placed in the Central Register to appear next Wednesday. And the minimum advertisement and solicitation period for any state contract is 2 weeks. So we are expecting, and Laura, correct the date if I'm wrong, Thursday, March 4th,
Yes.
we will have revised proposals in hand.
Somebody has a radio on behind them?
If you're not speaking, can you go on mute, please? Thank you.
So one of the things, David, that I was going to probably propose is because we've been through this and we've invested time. I'm hoping that on the meeting that we have on March 8th, I'm hoping on the 4th we receive the documents back, and we could review them. And then I'm hoping on the 8th, we could do this all in one shot. And I got to talk to Neil about that technically, but, you know, qualifying them technically again, because we have to do that because they're new RFPs. And then at the same time, opening up the envelope. And now that we have an idea of their pricing, opening it up and, you know, at the same time and trying to get it all done in one night so we don't have to have multiple meetings. So that would be the goal on the 8th.
All right.
So and then make the recommendation for the Thursday meeting.
So on the 8th, you're going to do both the trailers and the apparatus? Is that what you're saying?
No, not the trailers are a separate subject, I think, that we have to talk about here. But I'm talking about the apparatus bays. We received the new RFPs back on around the 4th.
I see.
We have the weekend, and then we could discuss it on our Monday meeting. Come up with a recommendation for the Thursday full building meeting.
I see. Okay. Yes, Katrina.
Question for Neil, since the previous process involved opening the technical proposal first and then the price proposal after the first part was ranked, how will that work for this next, for this revised bid proposal process?
The evaluation process will be the same. They must be ranked technically before those parties that are reviewing the technical elements are apprised of the price. It'll be done much in the same way, albeit from what I'm hearing, the desire is to compress that as much as possible.
Yeah. So we'll still receive the packages. The temporary committee will still receive the packages on the Thursday to review over the weekend. They'll be prepared to do the ranking on Monday first. And then once we're done with the ranking, the envelopes with the pricing can be open. And then we could have that information to look at it and either say yes or no and make a recommendation.
May I ask a question, David?
Yes.
Sure. Thank you.
Either one of you. David?
Oh, sorry.
I got 2 yeses, so you can ask 2 questions.
Why can't we rate them over the weekend while we're looking at them and avoid that lengthy process?
We can. We could say.
Then we
that
can
they're-
discuss our ratings, but yeah.
Yeah, we can rank them and make sure they're back to the office by 9 a.m. on Monday, or whatever, Monday morning, and then we'll have all that information. And then when we have the meeting, we don't have to. I mean, the only reason why we set it up the way we did is so if folks had questions about, if folks had questions about ranking, the ranking, they had the opportunity on Monday to discuss it. But if we want to rank them and then have that all prepared into the office on Monday, that's absolutely possible.
Yeah, I mean, they could still ask questions if they had,
Yeah.
outstanding questions.
Yeah, and if you don't feel like you could, rank one of the categories like before, you could just, put a line on, or, say, a line and say you don't want to rank that particular item.
So to be clear, with Katrina's question, so Neil, going out to bid means we start all over again, both with pricing and with, the answering the bids themselves, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Is that Greg who wants to speak?
No,
He's just rubbing his eyes. Okay, no, fake out.
So, Dave, do we want to talk? Do you want to update on the office living quarters? I
Yes.
looks like Carol has a question. Carol has a question.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, so in the case of the 3 proposers that were deficient in their responses, will they be notified of what they were missing? So that,
Yes.
because I would assume we want them to hopefully bid again. And then are there other companies that you know of that you'll send the RFP to try to get more response? Or I don't know if that's been part of the process.
Yes, we can. The answer to your question, both of your questions, is yes. We've reached out to many suppliers. over the first two, over the first solicitation. Those that felt it was a good match certainly submitted, and those companies would not be precluded from submitting a proposal this time around.
Great.
We've encouraged, as I said earlier, I had reached out to each of the companies, and I've tried to give them some names and phone numbers of local companies that are DCAM certified, and they would be able to partner with them. So we might get better proposals and a higher number of proposals for more interest in the project.
Yeah, that would be great. And you may have already addressed this, but time frame wise, were these all able to come in and be completed within the time frame? And do you think that will still be the case?
Most of the and I think that most of them had a mid to late May timeframe for delivery, which isn't terrible. It's a little later than we wanted, and certainly going back out to bid is not going to help that. But the reality is they were certainly within an earshot of where we wanted them. I think
that's good news.
I think more so than the modular offices, but
Right.
we'll get there.
All
I
right.
think we're
Thank
going
you.
there next.
Great. Thank you.
All right, any other questions about the apparatus? Okay. So in summary, we're going to go out to bid again because they were all
Yes.
deficient. Okay,
Yes.
so those are joining late. All right. So next would be a discussion about the trailers. I guess Neil, you would lead that.
Yep. So we reached out to Box Vanguard, who was the sole proposer from the first time around. I explained to them both the time and budget constraints that we had with regard to their initial proposal. They have countered with an option for, let me stop for a second. Our first conceived compound, if you will, was 4 modular trailers that were all joined together. Box Vanguard sort of advised us that would be a highly customized application. They would have better success both remarketing them and also availability if we were able to break them up into 2 smaller structures. So their new proposal was 2 double-wide trailers placed adjacent to one another. And the total cost, inclusive of engineering, delivery, the lease, some optional items, and removal at the end, was roughly $450,000. I'm summarizing round numbers. There is a defined scope of work that if we were to undertake that work with the city, it may provide some level of measured savings on the bottom line, keeping in mind that the city also has resources tied into fitting out the apparatus bays that may or may not be a good fit for the city's skill set. So these numbers are new, they're raw. I just got them yesterday. I've shared them with Marlo. We're going to continue our discussions about what work the city can do and what work they can't. The $450,000 number is a marked improvement over where we were from bid day, which was, I think, $675,000. So we're heading in the right direction. I'm not sure that we're at the finish line yet, but we are heading in the right direction, and we will continue our negotiations from here.
Thank you, Neil.
Yeah.
Mayor and Marlo, is there any comments you want to make to that about your both willingness and ability to deal with, sort of supplementing what's the work and what the time frame might be, so that if, so we can make a decision as a committee?
Marlo, I'll let you speak to it because you've had the most recent conversation with Neil, so.
Yeah, thank you. So Neil and I are still gonna meet, and we gotta pull George in again as far as, this latest, cost proposal. I think originally a lot of the work, we were originally gonna be asked, or we were gonna try and provide anyways, as we were working on this. But I just suggested to Neil earlier today, we should take a look at, what the difference in savings is. As he had spoken with me, I thought the turnkey was a pretty good price, but it doesn't mean we can't save a few more dollars once we focus and vet it out.
In terms
Marlo?
of time,
Oh, go ahead,
Excuse me.
Mayor. I'm sorry.
all I was going to say again, in terms of timing, to a certain extent, Marlo has to also factor that into his time frame and timing, factor that into his ability to take on some work. It happens to be spring, and a lot happens with our DPW in the spring. They're pretty well stretched. It just depends on who needs to do what and what's available to him. That's all. But I think he and Neil can probably figure that one out.
Yeah, I mean, just thank you, Mayor, just to comment on that. Of course, I would have been like to run some of the utilities in there by now if I had my way, but unfortunately the winter season's not cooperating. But I think that the key is we come as close as we can to the original target date. And what I mean by that is the further we go out into June and into July, that is going to be much more difficult for us to work around with what we have to do in the DPW. Not a deal breaker on our end. It's just some major moving around and whatnot. So if anybody has any other further questions on that, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, sure. David?
I think this is mostly for Neil, but in correct me if I'm wrong, but in my mind, by splitting up the living quarters and the office space, which I actually think is a good idea, from giving the fire personnel some more privacy and not having them together, wouldn't there be a less internal work that has to be done because they're separated, Neil, with respect to some systems, or is that not a true statement?
No, I think we still have the same amount of work that we have to do. I mean, we still have to do the fire alarm system. We still have to do the sprinklers in the dormitories. It's just a question of whether it's in one box or spread out in two. I mean, if
There's no less system work. There's no less system work that can be done because of the split up.
If anything, Dave, there's probably a little bit more work because now we have to bring IT service, electrical service, Teldata service to two buildings really instead of one. So if anything, it may be a little bit additional work.
Okay. I had thought it would have been the opposite way, but that's what it is. What it is. I got you.
I mean, we're talking about two water services, two sewer services, two. One of the trailers has the washers and dryers. One of the trailers has bathrooms and showers. So now you've got to pipe sanitary into two different buildings instead of just one. So it can, the two buildings, I don't think it may be lesser on the lease side. It's probably a little bit more complicated on the site side.
Any other? I have some questions, but if anybody else has a question in front of me. All right. So Marlo and Neil, I just want to make sure I understand this. So a reduced bid for two separate a reduced proposal of two separate trailers has been proposed at somewhere around $450,000. That doesn't make it all the way down to the budgeted numbers. So Neil, it sounds like you were suggesting that the DPW, if they were to do some of the work that the vendor is seeking to do, that would save us money from the $450,000. Is that correct?
It could, yes.
Okay. And Marlo and the mayor are saying that one thing is that, you know, the timing of when we do this would be critical to how the DPW could help. But Marlo and Mayor and Neil, are you going to come together and try to put a value on the work that that the DPW could do under the best circumstances, so that we as a committee could be sitting there with that as information? So for example, if in March we get the apparatus and it's a good bid, and now we've negotiated with Vanguard that instead of $450, they have 2 trailers available for $350 because we have $100,000 of work we can do ourselves. Is that just an example? Is that what we can expect to have? And we have another meeting between now and then to even talk about it, because we have another Thursday meeting. Excuse me a second, David. So is that what we're expecting to do? That's what it sounds like to me, but I haven't heard that proposed. So I just want to make sure. Maybe I'm taking it further or taking it in another direction. So I just want to understand. It sounds to me like we're trying to have the city pay for some of the costs that the vendor would pay for, and we need to determine the value of that work. Is that true?
Yes.
And Marlo and the mayor, is this something you can do and come up with some number within the next 2 to 4 weeks when we get, you know, so that we could, if that proposal then gets firmed up by having that number work, and then the apparatus comes in at a better presentation, we could wrap these things up at the same time. Is that a goal?
Yes, I think so. I think working with Neil, we can work on that to figure out what those figures are. As far as reviewing the newest scope, I haven't seen it yet. So Neil is I think that's what we had talked about.
Yep.
Is that something that could be available? Because we're normally scheduled for a meeting in 2 weeks. Is that something that can be available to the committee then? Is that too soon?
I mean, I think we could have a coordination meeting with Box Vanguard. We could talk through the services that are required with Marlo and George Vanderlinder at that point in time, and I think we probably could bring something back to the committee in 2 weeks. I'm hoping we get there.
Well, I was just thinking, you know, then we'd have an extra meeting to discuss, to make, you know, bring that to some closure if it's a positive result. And so we'll be ready on the first week of March to maybe finish off what we're doing, rather than lump everything together at the end. I just would like to, if we've made progress with Vanguard, and another way of making progress is to put this into another number, I would be hopeful if we could have that by the next meeting in February, so we can discuss it as a committee. Not trying to put pressure on anybody. I'm just saying, though, in terms of continuing to work at a certain pace, that might be a good goal. Anybody else on the committee have any thoughts about that? I'm sorry, David. I did. Go ahead.
I think we also have to consider the systems outside of what the city is going to be able to do, and we need to get some pricing on systems that we, you know, fire alarms, sprinkler. We need to look at the pricing for what these trailers are going to cost, the systems that the city isn't going to be able to take care of, and the pricing that the city is going to be able to take care of, and tally it all up and see, you know, what the total pricing is. It's got to be all 3 aspects.
Okay.
Because IT, I mean, there's going to be a price for outside systems that we need to know about.
Right, but the price for outside systems, is that, I guess I don't know the apples to apples. Is the $694 supposed to be everything, including that, or is the $694 just to lease the trailer?
Just the trailers.
That's just the trailers.
Okay, all right. I guess I want to stay within that apple. We have $694 as an apple to compare it to. Now we're down to $450 as an apple to compare it to. If the DPW can do more work, that apple can be reduced to maybe, again, making up numbers, $350, let's say. And then the committee could sit and talk about whether, even though it's over the budget, is that something we want to entertain? That's just an example of a discussion. That none of that's factually correct for anybody listening from the audience, including the Greenfield recorder. So That's just an example. So is that something that's what I want, so I'm assuming that when you said yes, that we would try to do that. And David's concerns about the other matters would certainly come up as a broader scope of discussion. Jean Wall.
Do we know when the trailers would be delivered? Are we still in this July timeframe?
That's a good question.
Under the new proposal, Gene, I'm sorry if I left it out earlier. They were proposing the trailers would be in by June 1st.
So that's good.
Again, not as early as we wanted, but within the near shot of where we wanted them before.
Yeah, and then there's a few weeks of fitting them
Yes.
out and getting them ready. So
Yes.
July, yes. When in July, I guess we don't really know quite yet.
Peter, did you have a question or something to add?
My question was Gene's question, so we're good.
Okay. So at this point, the architects have anything to report on anything at this point? Because we're kind of on a little bit of a hold, right? And there are
Sure.
some things we're going to talk about in executive session, but
Yes, David,
so
this is
again,
Katrina.
okay, thanks, Katrina. So again, to summarize, we're going back out to bid for the apparatus. Hopefully we'll be back in March 8th and whatever the Thursday is, I guess it'll be the 11th. And then with Vanguard, there's been some good negotiations that we're going to get more factual information so we could talk on
2 weeks.
sorry,
25th.
25th, thanks. Okay, and so nothing else to report. Neil, anything else to add? The architects have nothing else to add. Any questions from the group, the committee? Okay.
I thought Katrina said she had something to add.
Well, I just wanted to agree with all of the things that Neil presented there, and certainly if there's anything in the systems or relationship between the trailers and the bays that we need to be involved with in terms of the site layout of those walkways, for example, we're certainly supporting whatever needs to be done to get us to that endpoint.
Thank you. Okay, so we don't have to do a motion. We've gotten our updates. The next meeting date's already set for the 25th at 4 p.m. So I'm going to read the language to go into executive session, and I'd like somebody to move what I'm about to say as a motion. For the public, we're going to go into executive session, come out of executive session, and then adjourn. So there'll be no more business after executive session. So I'd like a motion that we vote to go into executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property at Main Street and Coombs Avenue if the chair declares that an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. And I do declare that.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Except what time? Everybody's gotten a link. Want to take 10 minutes? 4:45?
Yeah, I think 10 minutes is good. We have a couple of guests. I've already alerted the lawyer that it's closer to 4:45, if that's okay for people. I don't
That's
know what
great.
Adam's done.
Adam sees thumbs up. All right.
I mean, I'll go in and start the meeting so you can start going as soon as you want, but I mean, if you want to take a couple of 10 minutes or so. Go
No,
right ahead.
let's 4:45 will that'll be a friendly amendment to the motion. So it's motion seconded. I'm going to take a roll call. If you're in favor, say aye. Mayor?
Aye.
Butch?
Aye.
Chief?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Herb, you there? Steve?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Liz?
Aye.
Jean? David Singer, aye. Okay, see you in 10.